Assalamualaikum and good day to my examiners panel. My name is Azib Zafran bin Zulkarnain, and today I will be presenting my research proposals entitled Video-Based Teaching versus Traditional Teaching on Uppercut Execution among Novice Boxers at UiTM Seremban 3. The study focuses on skill acquisition in novice boxing, particularly the learning of the uppercut technique. Boxing is a sport that requires technical skills, coordination, timing, and proper movement execution. Among the various punching techniques, the uppercut is considered one of the most challenging skills for beginners because it requires effective coordination between the lower body, trunk, shoulder, elbow, and wrist. In sports coaching, the teaching method used can influence how effectively a skill is learned. Traditionally, boxing skills are taught through live demonstrations and verbal instructions provided by a coach. However, with technological advancements, video-based teaching has become increasingly popular because it allows learners to repeatedly observe movement, analyze technique, and learn at their own pace. Therefore, this study aims to compare video-based teaching and traditional teaching in improving uppercut learning among novice boxers at UiTM Seremban 3. The findings may provide useful information for coaches and sports educators in selecting effective teaching methods for skill development. With that introduction, I will now proceed to the research background. Boxing is recognized as a complex motor skills that requires the integration of physical and technical components. To perform effectively, athletes need to develop proper striking techniques, footwork, timing, defensive skills, and decision-making abilities. For novice athletes, learning the correct technique at an early stage is important because incorrect movement patterns may become difficult to correct in the future. Therefore, effective teaching methods are needed to support the learning process. The uppercut was selected as the focus of this study because it is a technically demanding punch. Successful uppercut execution requires coordinated movement from multiple body segments, beginning from the lower body and transferring force through the trunk and upper limbs. Traditional teaching methods usually involve instructor demonstrations and immediate feedback. Meanwhile, video-based teaching provides additional opportunities for repeated observation and visual learning. Despite the growing use of video technology in sports coaching, limited evidence exists regarding its effectiveness for novice boxing skill acquisition within Malaysia university settings. This research attempts to address that gap. Next, I will explain the problem statement of this study. Novice boxers often struggle to master the uppercut technique because it requires coordinated whole body movement and technical precision. Traditional teaching methods provide live demonstrations and immediate feedback. However, learners may have limited opportunities to repeatedly observe the movement after the demonstration has ended. Video-based teaching allows learners to repeatedly view the movement, analyze the technique, and better understand the correct execution of the skill. This may enhance uppercut learning among novice boxers. Although video-based teaching has been widely studied in motor learning, most previous studies focus on general motor skills rather than boxing-specific skills such as the uppercut. Furthermore, there is limited evidence in Malaysian university settings comparing video-based teaching and traditional teaching for uppercut learning. Therefore, the study aims to address this research gap by examining the effectiveness of these teaching methods on uppercut learning among novice boxers. This study consists of two research objectives. The first objective is to describe the accuracy of performing the uppercuts between different methods of teaching. This objective focuses on evaluating the level of uppercut accuracy achieved by novice boxers following the teaching intervention. The second objective is to compare the effectiveness of video-based teaching and traditional teaching on uppercut learning among novice boxers. This objective aims to determine whether one teaching method produces better learning outcomes than the other one. Together, This objective will help identify the most suitable teaching approach for improving uppercut learning among novice boxer at UiTM Seremban 3. I will explain the research question and hypothesis of this study. Based on the research objective, 2 research questions were developed. The first research question is what is the level of uppercut accuracy among novice boxers receiving video-based teaching and traditional teaching. This question is descriptive in nature and aims to identify the uppercut accuracy achieved by participants after the teaching intervention. The second research question is there a significant difference in uppercut accuracy between novice boxers receiving video-based teaching and traditional teaching? This question aims to compare the effectiveness of the 2 teaching methods based on participants' uppercut accuracy scores. For the hypothesis, one null hypothesis was formulated. The null hypothesis states that there is no significant difference in uppercut accuracy between novice boxers receiving video-based teaching and traditional teaching. Research question 1 does not require a hypothesis because it is descriptive in nature. However, research question 2 is comparative and requires inferential statistical testing. Therefore, one null hypothesis was developed. For this study, participants will be divided into 2 groups. The video-based teaching group will receive structured instructional videos containing demonstrations, technical cues, and multiple viewing angles. Meanwhile, the traditional teaching group will receive instructor-led teaching using a standardized coaching script. Uppercut will be assessed using a target-based accuracy scoring system. Participants will perform 10 uppercut attempts toward a marked target area. Scores will be awarded based on the accuracy of each attempt. Higher scores indicate better uppercut learning and movement execution. To ensure fairness, both groups will receive the same teaching duration. Practice structure, equipment, training environment, and skill focus. In addition, the same assessment procedures and scoring criteria will be applied to all participants. The study begins with participant screening based on the inclusion and exclusion criteria. Eligible participants will then receive information regarding the study procedures, risk, confidentiality, and their right to withdraw at any time. After that, informed consent will be obtained. Participants will then be allocated into either the video-based teaching group or the traditional teaching group. Before the intervention begins, all participants will complete an uppercut learning assessment as the baseline test. Next, both groups will undergo a 2-week intervention program under standardized conditions. Following the intervention, participants will complete a post-test using the same assessment procedures as the baseline assessment. Finally, all collected data will be recorded, organized, and prepared for statistical analysis. Collected data will be analyzed using Jamovi statistical software. First, descriptive statistics including the mean and standard deviation will be calculated for each group. Next, assumption testing will be conducted to determine whether the data meet the requirements for parametric analysis. Specifically, normality and homogeneity of variance tests will be performed. If these assumptions are satisfied, an independent sample t-test will be used to compare uppercut learning scores between the video-based teaching group and the traditional teaching group. If the assumptions are not met, a Mann-Whitney test will be used as a non-parametric alternative. The significance level for all analyzers is set at p-value less than 0.05. Effect size values will also be reported to determine the practical importance of any difference identified between the 2 groups. The study is supported by several important references related to motor learning and video-based instructions. The study conducted by Modinger and colleagues highlighted the positive effects of video-based visual feedback on motor learning outcomes. Research by Koch and colleagues demonstrated the benefits of self-controlled video feedback compared with traditional practice methods. In addition, Trebelsi and colleagues compared direct observation and video observation approach in motor learning settings. Together, this study provides the theoretical foundation supporting the use of video-based teaching in sport skill acquisition. In conclusion, this study aims to compare the effectiveness of video-based teaching and traditional teaching on uppercut learning among novice boxers at UiTM Seremban 3. The study seeks to contribute to the growing body of knowledge on motor learning and coaching methods, particularly within the context of boxing skill development. It is expected that the findings will provide practical guidance for coaches, instructors, and sports educators when selecting appropriate training approach for novice athlete. Thank you for your attention. I welcome any question and feedback from the examiners.